According to researchers from Virginia Boston Healthcare System and Boston University School of Medicine, approximately 21% of high school football players, 91% of college football players, and 99% of NFL players will develop CTE, which was published in the Journal of American Medical Association. The purpose of my speech is to inform you on the risk associated with playing football. I am credible to speak on this topic of CTE in football because I have done research and played football myself. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The topic will affect many of you because I'm sure we all either know someone who played football or have played ourselves. We may also be faced with the question of, do we really want our kids to play football when injuries are so common, especially brain injuries? The main points of my speech will be: 1, what is CTE and how was it discovered? 2, I will give some examples of what CTE does to people. And 3, what the NFL and other football leagues are doing to try and protect people and their players from injuries that cause CTE, like concussions. Now that you know what I'm going to talk about, let's move on to point 1. My first main point is, what is CTE and how was it discovered? CTE was discovered by Dr. Bennet Omalu while he was conducting an autopsy on former Pittsburgh Steeler Mike Weber, who died unexpectedly after going insane. Mike Webster died of a heart attack, but Dr. Omalu was determined to figure out what caused him to start acting erratically. Dr. Omalu found there was a buildup of tau protein that was eating away at the brain and killing brain cells. And this buildup of tau protein is what caused him to go insane. CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE is the buildup of tau proteins which kill brain cells, similar to that of Alzheimer's. CTE is caused by repetitive head trauma. In football, it is very common to get hit in the head. When you get hit in the head, your brain bounces around in your skull. Your brain is not held in one place, so it bounces around and it causes bruising on the brain, which your brain tries to heal. The symptoms in the beginning stages start out light, but become more severe as CTE progresses. According to Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy and former National Football League player suicides, written by Marcus Abreu, Fred Cromartie, and Brandon Spradley, symptoms in Stage 1 chronic traumatic encephalopathy included headache and loss of attention and concentration. Additional symptoms in Stage 2 included depression, explosivity, and short-term memory loss. In Stage 3, executive dysfunction and cognitive impairment were found. In Stage 4, dementia, word-finding difficulty, and aggression were characteristic. Now on to point 2. The second point is how CTE makes people act. The first example is Mike Webster. Mike Webster is one of the greatest centers to ever play in the NFL, which is justified by being enshrined into the NFL Hall of Fame. He had a long career, and being on the offensive line, he headbutted a lot of players just on accident, blocking them. This caused him to have many head injuries. Webster knew there was something wrong with him, but nobody could figure out what is wrong with him. CTE is not something that can be diagnosed while alive, and especially not in his case because it hadn't been discovered yet. He's placed on several medications, but nothing was working for him. He got to a point where he was living out of his car and using electrotherapy to shock himself to sleep. Everyone in his life was concerned for him. He had a great life, and there was no reasonable explanation for why he went insane and started just acting erratically, living out of his car, shocking himself to sleep. It just wasn't right. Dr. Omalu was determined to discover what would cause this man to go insane without any explanation, and used him to discover CTE, and determined that CTE was the cause. The buildup of tau protein was causing him to have mental problems. Junior Seau is another NFL Hall of Famer who had CTE. He was later diagnosed with CTE. During Seau's 20-year career, he of course endured several hits to the head from the linebacker position. When you're tackling somebody, you're going to hit your head a lot. In 2010, Sayal started becoming more violent and was accused of domestic violence. Also in 2010, Sayal accidentally drove off a cliff without any indication of being on drugs or alcohol. Then in 2012, at age 43, Sayal committed suicide by shooting himself in the chest. He left a suicide note for his wife, saying that he wished for his brain to be studied, because he knew that there were risks involved playing football and head injuries. The next story is one of Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez had his career cut short after being convicted of murder and accused of several other murders. Nobody knows if CTE was the cause of what caused him to murder people, but it does seem like a contributing factor. It is clear that he just wasn't right in the head. He had a bright future and started doing dumb things. While in jail, Hernandez hung himself at age 27. After an autopsy was performed, he was found to have had the worst case of CTE ever discovered in somebody at his age. Now on to my next point. The third point is how the NFL and other football leagues are trying to limit head trauma. They have created several rules to try and force players not to use their head in tackling. Leading with the crown of your helmet is a penalty, whether you're on the offense or on the defense. You cannot drop your head down like that and lead with the top of your head. When you lead with the top of your head, you not only risk breaking your neck, but it also causes head injuries and damage to the brain. League also protects players who are vulnerable and unable to brace for a hit. So if the player is focused on catching the ball and that's all he can really focus on, a defender can't just come up and just completely lay him out and hit him really hard in the head. That's going to be a penalty. There are also stricter rules for concussions to make sure that players don't try to play with concussions. NFL and other leagues want players to let their brains heal before they come back and start playing again. Any player who is believed to have possibly had a concussion is forced out of the game to be checked by doctors in the NFL. So if a ref sees a player gets hit in the head, he'll tell the player to go to the sideline and get checked. At all levels of football, there is a concussion protocol to follow. These players have to get healthy before they're allowed to come back to football. They must be cleared by a doctor. That is my three main points to CTE and football. Now I have talked about 1, what is CTE, 2, examples of what CTE does to you, and 3, what people is doing to limit head trauma, and subsequently CTE. The purpose of my speech is to inform you on the risk associated with playing football. CTE is a degenerative brain disease that kills your brain cells. CTE causes you to do crazy and out of the ordinary things, and there are ways to limit your chances of obtaining CTE by avoiding collisions with your head. We all know people who have played football, and we all need to know the risk associated with playing football for ourselves and for them. Thank you for listening to my speech.